I just want to mention that all attendees are muted during the presentation, but if you have any questions, feel free to use the GoToWebinar questions panel, and we will either answer your questions in the panel or we'll save them for the Q&A at the end of the session. So now I am pleased to introduce our presenter for today, Dr. Joseph Zisk from California University of Pennsylvania. Joe has experience in online course development as well as teaching, and he is currently a university professor. He has conducted many workshops and presented at numerous conventions and conferences. His area of interest is using instructional videos and using audio-video feedback for students. He has experience as a Quality Matters reviewer and also has QM course recognition. He's currently the director of University Teaching and Learning Center and teaches online courses. He is, as the director of the Teaching and Learning Center, Dr. Zisk provides and coordinates training for all of the faculty. So Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. If you're ready, I can go ahead and give you the screen for you to begin your presentation.
Okay. Okay, can you see the screen and can you hear me?
Yes, I'm seeing your screen.
Okay.
I'm assuming everyone can hear you.
Hi everybody, I'm Joe Zisk. I'm from California University of Pennsylvania. Yes, I know, California University in Pennsylvania. Well, what it is, it's a small town. It's called California, PA, and a university that were established back in the 1850s, and we now have over 8,000 students. So we are a medium-sized university, and we do have a pretty good online presence. I am a professor. I teach online courses, and recently I became the director of our Teaching and Learning Center, where we help faculty integrate technology, including online strategies in their teaching in like a blended approach. In this session, we're going to go over a few things. One thing we're going to talk about is learning outcomes or objectives, and then how we design assessments that go back with those objectives. And these are things that Quality Matters look for when they do a review, so this is good to talk about these items. And also an important part when you're designing a course is to have self-check mechanisms built throughout the course. And when you design a course, I like having the Quality Matters rubric or the annotated rubric in front of me so I can make sure I cover all the things, and we'll talk about that briefly. And also I include instructional videos in my course. I make my own, and we'll talk about that also. And then you can design assessments that connect back to the objectives to make sure students understand what's in the content of the course. And I design a lot of my coursework with SoftChalk. It makes life a lot easier. But one of the things I really like about using SoftChalk is that if you put quiz questions or learning activities in the SoftChalk lesson, it can automatically be graded, and the score will be placed in the grade book in your learning management system. Okay, let's talk a tiny bit about learning objectives. When I think of objectives, I look at this triangle, and there's like 3 components built into like a lesson. One, your objectives would be what you want your students to be able to do at the end of this lesson or the end of this course. So what students will be able to do. And then, of course, as you design assessments, you're going to connect back to the objectives. And as you design your instructional lessons and activities, you're going to include both the objectives. You want to make sure that you're covering all the things that will be assessed. And also the instructional methods that you're going to be using. And as we put some lessons together, I'll show you with the video and so on that it can make it a very interactive type lesson. And many of you may remember Bloom's taxonomy. You have the lower levels, which will be the knowledge levels down here, and as you go up, you will increase, and of course the highest level will be evaluation. And as you design your assessments, you're going to try to include all these stages or critical thinking levels, and when you design your assessments, you're going to try to use action verbs that illustrate that students will be able to do certain things. Before I go a little further, I'd like to just get a sense of what it's in the audience. I want to do a quick poll, and I want to see what institution you are from. So I'm going to put a poll up and just get a feel of the audience. Okay. Sarah, is the poll showing? Oh, okay.
Yep,
okay, I see it now.
The poll is showing.
Yes. And Sarah, just remind me, how do I just close it and the results will show on the screen?
Just close it and then click Share.
Okay, so I'm going to give you just another second and then I'm going to close this. And you can see our results with the majority of folks are faculty and teachers. And we do have quite a few instructional designers. And we have some administrators and managers. Great. Okay, this gives me a little sense of where we're at here. So if your faculty has you design lessons, you will be putting together objectives. And of course, as you design your assessments, they will connect back to those objectives. Now, as you design your course, as Jim mentioned earlier, quality matters is an important part of designing your course. And it's good to know what's in quality matters. And if you haven't had a chance to look at that, you should, in the future, go onto their website. And you can sign up, and I believe you can at least see the rubric, not the annotated rubric, which has all the details, but you can see the general rubric, and you can see what are some of the things that it covers, like the standards that are used to help us design online courses. And let me just show you what this was the rubric before Friday. As of August 1st, as Jim mentioned, we are now on the 5th edition. But what I did was I highlighted some areas on this rubric that shows areas that I believe SoftChalk could really contribute towards the assessments and so on. And I'll talk a little bit more about these as we go in. But these are the general rubrics. And you can see standard 3.5, students have multiple opportunities to measure their own learning progress. And this is worth 2 points. It's a way that can add up, and you need a certain score in order to be quality matters recognized. Now this is the annotated rubric of the older version. The newer version is very similar. I did get a chance to look at that. But this is that standard 3.5. But here are the things I want you to look at. Look for examples. As we do reviews, we look for examples of self-check quizzes and activities. So as we look at the lessons that the instructors are putting together, is there a chance for students to self-check and so on? So we look for those kind of activities in there. Also, you have mastery, interactive games, and self-scoring practice quizzes. One thing nice about SoftChalk, and this is why I began using SoftChalk, I wanted to integrate very easily these tools into my online courses. And I will show you, and I actually have a link. I put together a little SoftChalk lesson that we will share later on. And this is standard 4.2. It just talks about some learning activities with animated games, practice quizzes, images, all these things. As you use SoftChalk, it's easy to incorporate that in. You could probably put them into your learning management system without using SoftChalk, but one of the things I like about using SoftChalk, it makes it easy. I mean, it makes it nice and easy for me to put that together, and I like the way it looks. It makes a nice package. Oop, I went too far. So we have games that require inputs. and also the self-check exercises. And also you want to make sure that you have feedback. So if students get the wrong answer, there could be feedback and so on. So now to that little comic. As you design your assessments, you want to try to use a variety of type assessments. Because as you can see in this comic, not everyone has the same skills or same experiences that they could do. Of course, they all can't climb that tree. And the same way with assessments. You want to try, you got to realize we have different learning styles in our classes. So you might have some objective type of questions, essay type questions, projects. So you have a variety of things to do. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I like to include instructional videos because what I do in my lessons, I have content and I also have instructional videos. And I make my own instructional videos. And with some of the tools that I use, I like using Screencast-O-Matic. It's free. It's very nice. It can save your video as an MP4. In an MP4 format, you could upload to YouTube or whatever. Jing is also another quick and easy tool. It saves it in a Flash, a SWF format, so you can't load that up in YouTube, but you could give a link to it. If you want to get paid software, of course, there's Snagit and Camtasia. These are common ones used by educators that can make your screencasts. What I also often do is make narrated PowerPoints. If you're not familiar with that, if you have PowerPoint, Office 2010 or higher, it's not hard to do. You can add voice narration to your slides, and then you can save it as a movie. Then once you save it as a movie, you can then upload it to YouTube. Now, I upload mine to YouTube, but I make it unlisted because I want the world to see it, so you have to have that unique link to find that video. And I find that to be a good way, and then I could embed that video into my instructional lessons. And if you want to get a more professional version, again, Camtasia can also make your narrated PowerPoint presentations very easily. So these are great tools if you want to start making your instructional videos. But the things we're going to need now to go back to is designing questions. And I do have another quick poll that I would like to share. And I just want to see, and just be quick, what's the experience with SoftChalk? Okay, I'm going to close in just a couple seconds. Okay, it does seem like quite a few people do have experience with SoftChalk. I guess it makes sense since they're hosting this webinar. Some people are a little familiar with it. What's nice about using SoftChalk is you could embed a lot of these videos right into your lessons, and I will illustrate that. Since you're already familiar with SoftChalk, you do know it's a great way to add rich media, interactive activities or exercises. But here's the thing that I'm going to be focusing on mostly is SCORM. And I don't know if people are familiar with SCORM. And I do have just one more poll because I want to see what your familiarity is with SCORM or LTI. So if you're familiar with SCORM or LTI, can you please answer this poll? Okay, I'm going to close that and share it. So it appears that a majority do not use SCORM, and that's okay. That's great because that's what sort of the meat of this whole session's about. using SCORM. Now what SCORM is, an LTI, it's a shareable content object. It's a way that third-party software can communicate with your learning management system. So here's an example. This is just a screenshot from a lesson that I put together in SoftChalk. I have some content above here, and then you can see there is a self-check. That's going to be a question. And here is my video from YouTube that's embedded into the lesson. I really like embedding them in because it looks clean, and all they do is once they click on the play button, the only thing they see is the video. They don't see all the advertisements that YouTube may provide. Now, if you click, there's another one, and this is a quiz. So you can have a quiz type question that's graded, or you can have a practice question. It's up to you to decide how you want to do that. And when you make questions, in SoftChalk, you would just go to the Insert button, and then you could have various options, true, false, multiple choice, and so on. And you could go in and you could adjust your quiz to where it could be a real quiz, self-check, test yourself, we want to call it, and it could give it how many points that's worth. It could be 0 all the way up to 10 points or whatever. And you could allow students to retry. You can make them only one time, or you can have them retry. I usually let them retry it because I don't use this as a very formal type quiz. It's more of a formative quiz for me to get a feel how students are progressing throughout the lesson. In addition to quizzes, you can actually have learning activities. And these can be a little fun to use because they make sounds and so on. But this is like drop and drag activity where you just click on this and you drag it up into a spot, and you get in the right spot, it makes a little noise, and then you can see your score down at the bottom. So that's a good way to include quiz questions or practice questions, but in a sort of a game-like environment. And as you look here on the insert, you can see there's various ways. Here's the drop and drag, but you can have crossword puzzles, ordering. I like the hotspot, where you have an image, and you can click on a certain part of the image to identify different parts. So this is nice to sort of put together these type of activities. Now, when you do them in SoftChalk, you save it as a SCORM package, or you save it as a LTI, and that's another way of doing it, depending on your learning management system. And what happens here is when the students complete that activity, if you wish it to be graded, it can be graded. And you can see here I have 7 lessons. Each one's worth a certain number of points. It does vary. But as students go through the actual lesson, quiz questions pop up, just like the ones I showed you a little while ago. And then when they complete them, it will go into the grade book. And this down here, this is the grade book, and you can see the actual scores are popping in. And if you're using LTI, you go into the score center. You can actually look and see how many attempts they did and so on, get a little more detail. If you're using the score center, you can actually define how you want to see the scores. You can have the first, so if you let students take it more than once, you can have them do the first score, last score, average score, highest score. I kind of like selecting the last score because that's what I want to see. The last time they went in, when they took the quiz or the learning activity, what score did they get? That would be their final score. And you also could limit the number of attempts. Now the important thing here is you embed these quiz questions in there, and then students could take it. And let me give you an example of that. Let me try, I'm gonna, here is an actual SoftChalk lesson I put together, and I will give you the link to this because I have some resources here that you might want to use after this session. In addition to the archive of this presentation, I include some additional items here. And if I click on, here's a lot of links here. This goes right back to SoftChalk because they have some great tutorials that you could use. I provided links here. And this is how to publish to learning management systems. And you might want to look through those. Let me just go to the next page. This is a YouTube video that I embedded into the lesson. Here are some questions. But here are some questions right here. I could just click on here. Okay, SoftChalk, but yeah, I'll say true. And I could check my answer. And if you look down in the right-hand corner, you can see the grades, the scores that they receive in there. And there's different ways you could do this. And there's another question. So you have questions scattered throughout. Let me see if I could get this one right. Oh, this one you have to put in order of how to do it, but I'm not going to do that. But you'll see whatever score you get, that will pop up down here in the right-hand corner in the grade area. I also provide some tutorial lessons on adding quizzes in SoftChalk using SCORM. This is a PDF. It gives you some step-by-step procedures. Our learning management system is Desire to Learn, but this will work with other learning management systems too, like Blackboard and Angel and Canvas and so on. And then I also even talk about how to make some narrated videos if you're interested in that, making narrated PowerPoints, and also making screencasts. These are PDFs of this, and I will give you the link to this file. And then, of course, there is Quality Matters. I like this video on Quality Matters. It talks about how students are saying that they want a quality course, and that kind of puts together the context of the standards that Quality Matters put together. And let me switch back to the PowerPoint. So, publishing your lessons to a learning management system. As you can see, Angel could take SCORM or LTI. Blackboard is SCORM. This may have changed, but this is what I could find right now. Desire to Learn, we could do both SCORM or LTI. SCORM is where you do it just within your learning management system. LTI is where you do it with the SoftChalk Cloud. So it's just a kind of a different way, but the result is the same. You're going to be grading the quizzes that are built into your lesson. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of videos on SoftChalk's website on how to do these things and how to package them and how to upload them into your learning management system. So you can see there's SCORM and here's LTI. So this is a nice way of learning if you need to know how to do that. I don't know if you're familiar with embedding videos into a lesson. But if you're using YouTube, you can get the Embed Code. Then all you need to do is just using SoftChalk, just insert a widget and then just paste that Embed Code into your widget. And now you will have it nice and clean. You will have the video lesson right there where you can actually see the video. And then right under that could be your quiz question, which again can be scored using SCORM or LTI. Now, when you're designing a lesson in SoftChalk and you wish it to be scored, you need to package your lesson. And when you're in SoftChalk, you just go to the File, Package Lesson, and then you have various options here. If you're going to use SCORM, you're going to make it into a zip file. You could pick SCORM 1.2 or 2004. I use 2004. You might want to experiment with that. And it makes it into a zip file, and then you import that into your learning management system. Now that somehow sets it up where your quiz questions in your SoftChalk lesson will communicate with the gradebook in your learning management system. Again, you have various score trackings. You can make a single attempt or unlimited intent. And you can even have these results emailed to you. I don't want them emailed to me. I want them just in the gradebook, and that's where I have them go. Now, if you're going to use SoftChalk Cloud, you do have a few more options. And when you upload it into the cloud, you would then get your LTI link, and that's what you would import into your learning management system. And again, that will set up that communication between the quiz questions and the gradebook. Now, if you are going to use LTI, you have to make sure that your learning management system is set up for that. I do know with Desire to Learn, we have to our D2L administrator must set something up in the system to communicate with LTI. So I'm not sure about other learning management systems, but you might want to just check that out with your learning management system administrator. So a quick overview. We talked about instructional lessons, connect your questions to your objectives, and using SCORM or LTI to score the quiz questions. The scores will be placed into the gradebook. And as you design your lessons, I'd like you to think of this little comic. Look, it's almost 11 o'clock. Wow, the hour time flew by. I hope the teacher didn't say anything important. People can sort of zone out or space out while going through lessons. If you incorporate quiz questions in your lesson, it will help keep students more focused. And you could use practice quizzes, or you can actually give them some points. Now, I don't give them a lot of points. I just give them a little bit of points, just enough to keep their interest to want to go through the lesson, but not enough to be a total grade changer. I just want them to sort of follow the lessons and go through it. And that site that I showed you, this is the link for the site. It's teacheronline.us SoftChalk-QM. That was that little tutorial that I showed you, and we'll put that up in the chat box so you can have that link. And there are quiz questions there, but I also provide a lot of resources that you could download and follow things sort of step by step, especially if you want to experiment using SCORM to grade quiz questions that are built into your SoftChalk lessons. And if you want, if there's questions popping up, I could actually go into SoftChalk and show you some of the things that we talked about. So Sarah, I'm open for questions.
Great. Well, we did have a couple of questions come in. So Helena was just asking if you can repeat the difference between SCORM and LTI, just because I think it got a little bit confusing.
If you're going to use LTI, you must have SoftChalk Cloud. If you're not using the cloud version of SoftChalk, if you're using just the desktop version, then you can only save your lessons that want to be graded in a SCORM package. And then you need to import that SCORM into your learning management system. It's a physical thing. You save the file on your computer, and then you upload that SCORM zip file into your learning management system. If you're using SoftChalk Cloud, you will go to the screen where it has the links to your lessons, and you find the LTI link, and that is the link you now import into your lesson. You don't have to import the whole files. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And if anyone else has any other questions, you can go ahead and put them in the questions panel now. And Elena said yes, that you answered her question, so that's good. Let me see. So Susan asks, can you download a package using SCORM in the cloud using Blackboard?
Yes. Yes. Whatever you put up into the cloud, you can also download your lesson as a zip file, and yes, and you can download it as a SCORM package.
Okay, great. And then Caroline asks, I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but is there a way to override the limit of the limit on the numbers of items in a SoftChalk activity. For example, the drag and drop is limited to 7 items.
I doubt it, but I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, I don't think there is, but I'm not 100% sure. I can look into that,
no.
Carolyn. So another question, how do you make a narrated presentation with PowerPoint using voice narration? I think you had a brief example about that.
Right. Can you share my screen again? Is my screen still?
Your screen is still up. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm actually sharing my screen. I'm in PowerPoint right now. I'm using PowerPoint 2010. And if you go up to where it says slideshow, if you have a Mac, it doesn't really work well in a Mac. You can add the narrations, but you can't save it as a movie. So this is best on a PC. And it's 2010 or higher. They just go up to slideshow. We play narrations. You can use timings. And then you go over here and just say start recording from beginning. And you'll just start talking, and it will save a little narration into each slide. And when you advance, it will go into the next slide, and a little speaker will pop up down on the right-hand corner showing you that there is voice or audio on each slide. And if you make a mistake, you could redo one particular slide. That's what I like about it, because you can make your whole 20 slides and have voice narration on each slide, and then you go back to slide 10 and just redo slide 10 if you want. Once you're done, you now save it as a PowerPoint presentation, and if you send that over to somebody, if they put it in play mode, they will hear your voice narration over it. But what I like to do is I like to save it. I go to File, Save and Send, and I create a video with that, and I actually create a video, and it usually saves it as a Windows Media video that then you can upload into YouTube or change it into another format. But now you have a video of your narrated PowerPoint slides. And on that one website that I gave you, at teacheronline.us, I do have some step-by-step, I have a PDF that has step-by-step instructions. And I also have some narrated PowerPoint presentations there, and also some screencasts showing you how to do that.
What was that website again, Joe? Just so I can share it with everyone in the chat window.
Okay, you know what? I could put it in the chat window, right?
Okay, yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think it's popping up there.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
I'm just going to add what I did. If you're looking at my slide presentation, I did a practice run of this presentation, and I actually recorded it. So if I click on this, and I'm not going to let it go through too much, but that is sort of like a little review of the presentation. And I just put that up there just to show you what an embedded video would look like in SoftChalk, and then you can have some questions under that.
And sort of going off with this, we had another question come in from Ernest asking, what should the length be for creating a video?
Say that again, what should a link?
What should be the length of time for creating a video?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, that's a good question, and the reason why I'm hesitating is because the video I just did was 26 minutes long, and that's way too long. It should be between 6 and 8 minutes. If I was going to use this for instructional purpose with my students, I would divide that video, I would divide that lesson up into certain components. Like I would take out the quality matters, make that a separate video, the SoftChalk, the SCORM, so I have probably 2 or 3 videos out of that long one. But I was just practicing, and I wanted to get it up there just to show, to group that. But in your classroom environment, you don't want to make them too long.
Yeah, and actually Nancy just shared that she recommends them be less than 10 minutes. And she also said that you can record voice narration on earlier versions of PowerPoint as well, because she's been using it. So thanks, Nancy, for sharing that.
But you ask Nancy how she's saving that then. Are you importing it up into YouTube? Because earlier versions you can't save it as a video. You can make narrated PowerPoints, and then you have to use AuthorStream or some other program to host your narrated PowerPoints. So
Okay.
if she responds to that, I'd like to hear what she says.
Yep, I will. She says that she just records the voice narration in earlier versions. But Nancy, if you want to let us know how you host them, you let us know, and we'll be happy to share that information. We also had another question come in from Andrew, and he says, when utilizing the Screencast-O-Matic, do you have any tips to enhance the quality of the video when uploading it to YouTube?
I use Screencast-O-Matic a lot. I'm not sure about enhancing the quality. Usually it's pretty good quality. I don't have any problems with the quality of the video. Are you talking about that content-wise, or just it's not clear enough? I'm not sure what he might be asking.
Andrew, if you want to specify the quality, are you talking about the quality of the actual video, or he said the quality, the clarity?
Oh. I've always found to be pretty clear on my end. Let me see if I have any examples. I don't think I have any examples in this tutorial using Screencast-O-Matic. I would maybe just try a different browser then, just to see if that's what's maybe causing. Don't make it real big, of course. Don't do a full screen capture. Make a region capture. Just keep it a little bit of a nice little square, or something about, I guess, like this size. You don't want to make it too large. A person could always enlarge it by clicking the enlarge button, but I don't make it full screen, and maybe that's what might be affecting some of the things. With Screencast-O-Matic, the way I do it is I download it as an MP4, then upload it into YouTube. I think you need to get the paid version of Screencast if you want to upload it into YouTube directly. But I like saving them on my computer so I know I have them all and so on. I also use another program called Snagit from TechSmith. If you just buy Snagit by itself, it's like $29, and it's kind of quick and easy to use, and you might want to compare that quality. That might make it slightly better, I'm not sure. But you can also save as an MP4, and you can upload that into YouTube also.
Okay, and do you have, do you know what the resolution is for the PowerPoint? Or this is actually going back to the PowerPoint movie files. Mark asks, do you know what the resolution of those videos are?
Let me see. I don't know offhand, but we could. Oh, I don't want to say that. It means there is. It does say it there somewhere. Right here. It's 960 by. So you have a couple choices. There's 960 by 720, then 640, then 320. So you have different choices when you make your video from PowerPoint.
Okay. And Nancy actually responded, and she said she hasn't done it recently. That is hosting her video from older versions of PowerPoint, so she'll look into it, and she'll email you with her answer.
Okay. But I do recall from, because I've been using narrated PowerPoints. I used to use a program called Empatica, and then I use AuthorStream. But what I like about version 2010 or higher is you can now create a video right through PowerPoint, which makes it easy to use.
We did have another question come in from Carolyn. So she asks so she's talking a little bit about some of the limitations of quizzes and short answer activities that don't necessarily have a right or wrong answer and require the instructor to do the assessment. So she said this limits linkages to the gradebook. This limits linkages to the gradebook to binary content. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Right. In the SoftChalk lessons, usually my questions are objective. So they're your multiple choice, matching, or an order or something, so on. If I'm going to have a more formal type quiz or exam, that will go right into the learning management system. And I mark it right there in the learning management system as like an essay or so on. So I'm only using the quizzes and the lessons just to sort of get a feel of how the students are progressing through the lesson, and also just to reassure me that they are going through the lesson, because they need to answer those quiz questions, so they're scattered throughout the lesson to keep them focused. So there's always a test, a test that's through the learning management system on a lesson or a group of lessons.
Okay. And it looks like we've answered all of the questions for now. So like I said, if anyone, oh, actually one more question just came in. So Kathleen says, some of the more advanced students get bored with these learning activities, so what do you do in that case?
I'm not sure. I mean, you don't want to make them too silly, but you know, how complex can you make them? So I guess I would just not make so many of them, just sort of scatter it throughout the lesson, and hopefully, you know, you will have some more interesting type activities. It's not just building the lesson, it'll be after the lesson when they actually develop a project, whatever. So the actual lessons to give them the knowledge and the content to do something a little more higher level later on. And the quizzes are there just to make sure to encourage the students to go through the lessons and for you to get a feel of how they are achieving the content in that lesson.
And then so someone is sharing in the questions panel. So there are always books also. And then, let me see.
Right, there are books, yeah.
We did have a couple more questions come in, so I'm
Sure.
just trying to read these. So in your SoftChalk gradebook, are you able to set a standard for the score that students must read? So this is coming from Steve. He said he uses a non-scoring quiz that students must reach a score of 18 of 20 before moving on to the gradebook for points.
So,
must reach, sorry, not read.
okay, so there's a certain score. I know, I guess each learning management system is different. I can make conditions, so if you don't score a certain, if you don't achieve a certain score under a certain area, the next item may not appear. So in your learning management system, you can make conditions. So if you don't get 8 out of 10, then you can't see the next lesson. I mean, you could make those conditions, but that's up to the learning management system.
Right. Okay, and then Barbara also mentioned that in regards to our previous question, that she's had former students submit questions or activities that they would like to see for future lessons, so that's also a good tip. Thank you, Barbara, for sharing that. And so it looks like we've answered all of the questions. We do have a few more minutes, so if anyone does have any other questions, feel free to type those into the questions panel. I guess I will go ahead and take the screen back and just show everyone where they can learn some more information and contact us. So Joe, I'm going to go ahead and take back the screen.
Okay.
And so, so the examples that Joe shared today and that we have been sharing throughout this whole series pretty much represent how the presenters took some of the Quality Matters standards and adapted them into a practice that best fits their unique situation for their online courses. And we continue to encourage everyone to share your own best practices with us. You can tweet at us at SoftChalk or at QM Program and use the hashtag SCQMBP just for us to know that you're tweeting about this best practices series. And you never know, we might end up sharing some of your best practices at our user conferences this fall. And if you'd like more information about today's best practice, you can contact Joe or myself. My email address isn't on the screen, but you can learn more at softchalk.com. You can also learn more about Quality Matters and SoftChalk as well. And like I said, follow us on Twitter and tweet at us some of your best practices. Also, if you would like to be caught up with some of the other webinars that we've done during this series, you can visit softchalk.com/best practices in online course design. The URL is on the screen. I'll also paste it into the chat panel just so you guys can access it. And also, I forgot to mention that this presentation is being recorded, so everyone will be receiving a link to the archived webinar after, within the next couple of days. You should be receiving a link to it in your emails. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. I don't see any other questions that came in, but like I said, if you do have any other questions, please feel free to use any of these methods of communication. Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for your presentation and for joining us today, as well as Jim, Quality Matters. Thank you. And
Okay,
thanks.
you're welcome.
Yeah, and
Bye.
thanks everyone for attending. And we hope to see you this fall.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye-bye.